Hello, everyone. It's Matt Woods from First Alert 4, and welcome back to Backstory STL. On this show, I interview local people whose life stories have inspired them to make a difference in their community. These people get to explain their passion for meaningful work in a way that goes beyond the day-to-day headlines. My guest this week is a volunteer wish granter for the Make-A-Wish Foundation. He's been granting wishes for about 10 years, but his connection to the nonprofit started long before then. At 2.5 years old, he was diagnosed with a rare cancer called rhabdomyosarcoma. His parents helped coordinate a wish for him, and luckily, he survived the cancer. Being a wish granter is a way for him to give back, and a few months ago, he was named the 2024 Make-A-Wish Volunteer of the Year. Here's the backstory of Chad Baker. Thanks for coming on the podcast. Appreciate your time today.
Great, yeah.
So let's start with Make-A-Wish Volunteer of the Year for 2024.
Yeah.
What was that like to receive that award from nationwide, all the volunteers, and you got chosen for that?
It was kind of crazy, actually. So I had been told that I was nominated a few years ago, and even then, at that time, it was like, wow, like that's crazy. I would have never thought. I mean, I was just, I just love doing it. It's kind of a day-to-day thing, and it's become a passion of mine. So I didn't even think of that, like that kind of thing would be possible. And the award that year ended up going to somebody in Connecticut, I believe. And then I was like, oh, okay, well, there's my shot. Cool. I didn't expect that it would happen again. So when the director of PR and marketing at Make-A-Wish, Missouri and Kansas, we had been working on a video for one of our Wish kids, and he called me into the office, and he's like, hey, we need to do some shoots for this video. So I was like, all right, cool. So I went in thinking, yeah, we're just going to do a shoot. And then at that time, the National Leadership Conference was going on, and the CEO of Make-A-Wish Missouri was about to go on, and we're waiting for her to go on. We're kind of watching her go on, and all of a sudden, Brian whispers in my ear, "We're here for you," and he kind of pushes me in front of the camera, and then she makes the announcement, and then all the Make-A-Wish staff come in, streamers and signs and balloons and everything, and I'm like, what is going on? Like it was like a prank. It almost seemed like a prank at first, and then after it settled in, I was like, oh man, this is cool. Yeah, it's a huge honor, and I'm glad that the recognition came, and it's, for me, it's just been a lifelong thing. So it's like, I don't do it for recognition. I don't do it. Just do it. I do it because it feels right. Mm-hmm. So, but people recognize that. And so, yeah.
So you had just a slight heads up of you getting the award.
Well, the first time somebody emailed me and said, hey, you've been nominated for this award, and the winner is going to be announced at the National Leadership Conference. This was like 4 years ago. Mm-hmm. And then the National Leadership Conference happened like almost immediately after that email. And then it was announced that it went to somebody else. And then that was it. This time there was no forewarning. There was no announcement. There was nothing that happened beforehand that gave me any kind of inclination that it was going to happen, other than Brian inviting me to the office and says, hey, I need you to answer some questions and do some shoots with me. And then at that day, everyone was kind of conspicuously hidden over on this side of the building, and we're doing all this stuff over here. And then he's like, oh, let's go over here. We need to do something. We need to go watch Caroline Schmidt, who's the CEO, do her thing on the video. And then I was like, all right, we're going to go over here. And then it all happened very quickly. So there wasn't really a warning. I had an inkling that something was going on, like something wasn't quite like kosher there, but yeah. I didn't. That was the last thing on my mind.
Yeah.
So.
And so, do they give you like a plaque or something? Like what happens from there?
So two things. One, I got a little statuette, and then also they have a plaque they put up on their, whenever someone wins from their home chapter, puts up a plaque on their office wall. So there's a plaque in the office that I think they're putting up now that has like 2024 Volunteer of the Year, my name. And then there's also a component where a Wish kid from our chapter is going to get his wish granted as part of the award, and I got to choose that kid. So that's going to be happening sometime later this year.
Oh, okay, so it hasn't been announced yet who that
I've chosen the kid. I've chosen the young man who's going to get the award, and we're waiting for him to recover from some medical things and for him to narrowed down his wish, but at some point he will be told.
Gotcha.
And then the funds have been given. The funds will be given to our chapter from Make-A-Wish America, and that will be used to pay for his wish.
So that's pretty cool. Like the local chapter actually benefits, and it's not just a recognition. It's, they actually get a little bit something extra out of it.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so how long have you been volunteering at Make-A-Wish?
I did a volunteer event with them in 2014. It was a Christmas time event at the Magic House. I was a Cookies with Santa, and then I was approached by, I started volunteering with the Young Professionals Board that year. And then I wasn't officially volunteering for Make-A-Wish. I was like with the Young Professionals group. And then I did this event at the Magic House. And then the volunteer manager at that time approached me and said, hey, would you be interested in wish granting? I said, hell yeah. They said, well, you just missed the St. Louis training. If you want to go to Kansas City and do their training next week, you can. I said, sign me up. Drove out there, did the training. And then I started wish granting in January of 2015. So I just passed my 10-year mark.
So you were ready to go.
I was ready.
Start.
I'm a former wish kid myself from when I was 4.5. And then my family's always contributed to Make-A-Wish since then through donating, through going to events, and things like that. So I had always wanted to give back in a better, in a bigger way. So when the opportunity came to do some wish granting, I said, sign me up. I'm there. I'm ready.
So what was your background as a kid when you were 4? What was
I was diagnosed with
through?
rhabdomyosarcoma when I was 2.5. It was 1986. It was a soft tissue cancer in my stomach, and it took about 2.5 years of treatment to get rid of it completely. In 1988, after I finished all my treatment, I had my Make-A-Wish, which was to go to California. And at that time, we didn't have wish granters that came and met with me and asked me what my wish. It was all done over the phone with the office. But anyway, I had my wish. Went to California in August of '88. Came back, and then just growing up around Make-A-Wish events, walks, fundraisers, things like that. And then didn't have any involvement for a while. And then when I moved here, I had always wanted to give back. I always wanted to do something with Make-A-Wish, so I had to find the right time. And then it kind of fell into my lap, actually. My signing up and volunteering was kind of, hey, do you want to do this? Yeah. It was kind of a joining thing. And that's been a lot of the volunteerism stuff that I've done in my life. It's been like, hey, I think you'd be really good for this. Sign up.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And so do you remember getting the diagnosis when you were that little? Were you too little?
No. What I've been told was that I was with a babysitter. My parents were at work. I was 2.5. The babysitter noticed I had some blood in my diaper, called my parents. My parents said, take him to the hospital. My dad ran from his office at the university where he was teaching to the hospital, met us there. And then my pediatrician thought it was cancer, called around. We had to find a doctor who could figure out what it was. The only things that I really remember were going to the hospital, surgeries, being in the hospital, running around the hospital floor, playing with different people, coming home, party. My parents always throw me a little coming home party after a major time in the hospital or major surgery or something. I remember going into a surgery one time, and I had my central line right in my chest, and I actually, right as they were prepping me for it, I pulled it out. I pulled out my central line, and they had to redo this, re-prep me and everything, put me under, all that. So I have little vague memories, but I don't remember cancer.
Right.
I remember losing my hair. I remember having to wear napkins to put a hat on to pretend like I had hair, things like that. But being sick and being tired, I don't really remember any of that.
Yeah, when you're that little, obviously 2.5 is really, really young, but you don't really remember things unless it's really acute trauma.
Well, it was interesting because right after I finished my treatment, I had a friend, Jason, and Jason was probably my impetus for really getting involved with Make-A-Wish, because Jason was dealing with cancer. I don't remember what type, but it was immediately after my journey. I saw that he was diagnosed and he was going through it. He was losing his hair. He was getting really weak and really tired. He got a Make-A-Wish. He got to go to Walt Disney World, and somehow my mom and his mom decided that our family would join him and we would go with him. So I got to go to Disney World. It was kind of a second wish, if you will, for
Oh,
me.
wow.
And then we got back from that trip. Jason passed away. And then, that was kind of like my first, like, oh man, somebody died from cancer. And it was a Make-A-Wish thing, so it was kind of like, I always had this association, like Make-A-Wish, sick, death. And then, yeah.
Yeah. So you had a childhood friend who also had cancer?
Yeah, it was either AML or acute myeloid leukemia or acute lymphoblastic leukemia. I don't remember which it was, but he was a year older than I was, and his brother Michael, they were twins, so they were both a year older, and they lived right near us, and we got to see him. We knew him when he was healthy because I used to go over to their house and run around, and then we noticed he was getting weaker, he was getting sick, he was losing his hair, and that was like, aside from my personal cancer that I had, that was like my first time seeing somebody else with it.
Yeah.
So that I can
Man.
remember. That I can remember.
That's tough, man. I mean, you
Yeah.
had gone through it yourself, but then to see your friend go through it and then eventually
Yeah.
pass from it. And so, what was yours called again? What's the name? Of it?
Rhabdomyosarcoma.
Sarcoma. Okay.
Yeah, it's interesting because in the 80s, it was very, very rare. There weren't a lot of treatment options. There weren't a lot of there wasn't a lot well known about it. There were a few doctors in the country who knew about it, knew how to treat it, etc. I was lucky enough that a doctor in Boston at the Children's Hospital in Boston knew what it was. He saw my tests and he saw my my results and my labs and everything and my x-rays, and he knew exactly what to do. And then he treated me. Now, through Make-A-Wish, I've met 30 kids with it, and they're all in good. A couple have passed away, but also more of them have been treated and are living very healthy.
So
now.
back in the 80s, was your case, was it like, did you have a low chance of survival?
We weren't sure what was going to happen. We were very scared. I know my parents were very scared. I was, of course, 2.5, so I'm going about my life whatever. But I know my parents were very scared. There was a period of time where it wasn't being treated. We were looking for options. We didn't know what the treatment was going to look like, if anything. I know my parents had to make a lot of very tough decisions about surgeries and what those surgeries would later impact as far as daily functioning, or would I be able to play sports or this or that or something like that. So would I be able to have a family? Those types of decisions that they had to make for their 2.5-year-old. So
did you ever talk to them later in life about what that was like for them to go through that?
Yeah, I've had to have a couple of conversations with them, especially when I started with Make-A-Wish, and I started building up a reputation with the local chapter, and they started asking me to tell my story. Since I didn't know my story because I was so young, I had to rely on their testimony, basically.
Right.
So my mom would tell me her side of the story, and my dad would tell me his side of the story, and then I had to piece together what was similar and what was different, and kind of make the narrative, and then what I remembered also. Sorry.
Oh, you're good. And then so you get a wish. How did, because back in the 80s, that was closer to when Make-A-Wish started. It was
Make-A-Wish was founded in 1980 in
okay.
Arizona. It started in Arizona, and then it kind of branched nationally. I know our local chapter here in Missouri was founded in 83. The Massachusetts chapter was founded 82 or 83. And like I said, when it started, it was more of an impetus for kids whose chances of survival were very slim and very low. It has since grown to be a much more impactful for kids, for anyone who has a life-challenging condition, not necessarily a terminal condition. But back then, a lot of chapters didn't have volunteers that went to the home, met the kid, met the family, did that. Nowadays, we have wish granters, which, like me, I get to go to the family, I get to meet the kiddo, I get to say, hey, if you could go anywhere in the world, where would you want to go? If you could meet anyone in the world, who would you want to meet? If you could have anything, what would you want to have? If you could be something like a superhero or a policeman or something like that, what would you want to be? And then they tell me what their idea is, and we said, yeah, all right, we're going to make it happen. And we go to the office, submit that, and then the office goes through their approval process. And then once the wish has been approved medically and by the office, we get to tell the kid that and make them really happy because they're getting their wish. It's going to be true.
Yeah, I imagine that's probably like the best part of the
Yeah.
whole thing is actually granting the wish.
Yeah. I remember very distinctly back in 2015 when one of my first Wish kids, when we told her she was going to Disney, she ran 12 laps around her like living room, kitchen, dining room. Like she had one of those houses where it's like there's a middle console, but then the whole like, you could run laps around your house basically.
Yeah.
And she had an Elsa dress and a frozen balloon, and she's yeah, like all
Doing
around her
laps.
house. Oh man, I was so happy. That was probably one of the most expressive kids that I've had. Yeah, that was awesome. It's been awesome to work with all the kids that I have.
Yeah, I think there is kind of a conception that the Wish kids are all terminal, or that's where it's kind of headed, but that's not really the case now.
Yeah.
A lot of the people, obviously, they have some sort of diagnosis or condition that really affects their life, but it's not always
No.
always terminal.
So let me just give you kind of an example of some of the diagnoses that I've worked with. I've worked with kids with rhabdo. I've worked with kids who had a kidney transplant. I've worked with kids who've had a heart transplant, liver transplant, cystic fibrosis, epilepsy, a genetic disorder that impacts their developmental like their development, their cognitive development, but also might have some like genetic mutation that shortens their lifespan. Duchenne's muscular dystrophy, sickle cell anemia. So it's anything. It's any condition that can be debilitating and that can pose a risk of your life. And we work with kids who are as young as 2.5 to kids who are. We accept referrals for kids who are just before their 18th birthday. So we work with a large berth of kids. Anyone who has a diagnosis can be referred and accepted. It's not like a lottery system. It's not like we're picking and choosing kids. Anyone is eligible.
Gotcha. Okay. And then, so your wish, you wanted to go to California?
That was my parents' wish for me, and
Oh, okay.
it wasn't that I didn't. Let me rephrase that. I loved the beach, I loved swimming, and I loved animals. So they picked something that they knew I would like. But because it was my parents communicating with the office, I didn't have a say in it. But also I was 2.5, and I was going through cancer, so who knows what I would have been able to. If I had wanted my wish, and if I had vocalized my wish, I probably would have said like, I want to meet the Ninja Turtles. Now, because the Ninja Turtles were just coming out in that 86, 87, 88 timeframe. Now, when I went with Jason on his wish, I got to meet the Ninja Turtles. So I got what probably would have been my wish later on. So I wasn't too upset about it.
That was my next question. Did you eventually meet the Ninja Turtles?
I did. They had a concert, like meet and greet kind of thing at Disney World in like 90, 91, 92, 93. They would come out. They would do this like sing and dance and show, and then they would disperse and do autographs. And I got to do that. I got 3 of the 4. I didn't get Michelangelo's autograph because he was the most popular one, but I got the other 3. I got Shredder. I got April O'Neil. So it was cool.
Yeah. You ever been back to Disney since the 80s?
I have. Through Make-A-Wish, one of my Make-A-Wish friends had organized a trip for other wish granters and friends and family of his to go down and volunteer there. There's a place called Give Kids the World down there, which is where if you're on a wish and you're on a Disney wish or like a Central Florida wish, you stay there and it's like a little resort, like a little paradise in its own. But they're pretty much all volunteer run. So he went and I went with him and we got to volunteer at the Give Kids the World. And they gave us passes to Magic Kingdom one time or Animal Kingdom. They gave us passes that we could go to one of the parks one day. And so I got to go to Animal Kingdom and Universal Studios. I didn't go to Epcot or Hollywood Studios or SeaWorld or anything like that.
I went when I was like 10, 11, something like that. And I remember Epcot. I don't really remember anything else. But our hotel had like a zoo in it or something like that. I don't remember it that much. But yeah, it was fun. I don't know if I would go back. Not really.
I mean, this was 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019. We went several years in a row, and then COVID hit and the quarantine, and so we haven't gone back since then. But and it was also we always went during hurricane season. So we almost had this impending, like Hurricane Irma. And in 2018, when Hurricane Irma hit, we were there leading up to when the hurricane hit. And like we got there and it's, oh my God, there's this hurricane. We got to get out. And it was this whole big
You're
ordeal.
risking it.
Yeah.
So, like, how many of the wishes are for Disney World? I imagine it's like quite a lot of them.
I don't know an exact number, but Wish to Go is our most popular wish choice. And within that, Disney World is like our most popular destination. Second would probably be Hawaii. Myself, all the wishes that I've done, I've granted about 75 Disney wishes and 15 Hawaii wishes, with about 7 or 8 that I'm still working on right now that are Hawaii wishes. I've got about 7 or 8 Disney wishes right now and 7 or 8 Hawaii wishes.
Hawaii would be awesome. That would be a cool wish.
Interesting story about Hawaii. My parents were interested in going to Hawaii for me. I wasn't old enough, and I didn't, they had certain criteria about Hawaii, like you have to be this old, because they wanted it to be about me. And if I really said, it would have been what I have said. I wish to go to Hawaii at 2.5,
Right.
not knowing what Hawaii was. Or
Exactly, yeah.
anything, but they were interested in going to Hawaii, and Make-A-Wish was kind of like, what about Disney? And my parents were like, well, what about somewhere with a beach and where he can do all these things? And that's why they settled in California. Also because, here's another thing about like the prognosis and the disease and everything, and not knowing what was going to happen. My mom has lots of relatives out there in California, and not knowing if I was going to make it or not, she was like, well, we want to give them the opportunity to meet me. So that was another reason to go to California. I got to, after San Diego Zoo, after the beach, after all these things, we took a trip to Northern California where one of my cousins lived. And we had a bunch of my cousins that came in, like we all had this big house party basically.
Yeah.
That was amazing. I don't remember it, but my parents do. We have pictures.
Yeah.
I have stories. So
That's nice, I bet, especially for them. You just don't know the future with something like that.
Exactly.
To have that moment.
exactly.
That's cool. And then so, I mean, I think Disney World maybe should give Make-A-Wish like a little discount for how much they're helping. I mean, everybody loves Disney, but
Yeah.
you know.
I don't know what the exact like partnership and how it all works, but I know that Make-A-Wish has like the Disney experience down to an art. Like they have all the details.
Oh, yeah.
They know exactly. They partner with Give Kids the World. We do everything mostly with Give Kids the World because they're the ones who give us the passes and make all the arrangements and everything. Disney World doesn't really do a whole lot.
Oh, gotcha.
And
Okay.
to my understanding, I might be misquoting, but I know that we do a lot more with Give Kids the World. And with Disneyland, we work directly with Disneyland because they don't have a Give Kids the World in California.
Oh, gotcha.
So if we do have a Disneyland wish, we have to work directly with Disney on those.
Yeah. Disney World was almost in St. Louis. Did you know that? They almost had it in St. Louis, and then for some reason they backed out, and now it's in Florida. So you almost had a easy wishes to grant as far as geography.
Yeah,
But
that would
now
have
you
been-
gotta hop on a flight and get down to
Although I would have probably said Florida's probably a better place for it, weather-wise, and
Yeah, that is definitely true. Definitely true.
because here you got all the tornadoes and you've got the winters that are unpredictable and the heat in the summer, so it's probably better.
Yeah, I can't imagine a kid coming to Disney World if it was in St. Louis in January of this year. It was the whole month. It was terrible.
Yeah, exactly.
But being from Boston, you probably know.
Boston winters are
yeah.
no joke. They're much worse than St. Louis winters, let me tell you.
Right. Our 6 inches of snow is Boston's 3 feet of snow. I got to go to Boston last year. Went there to go to a Red Sox game for Fenway because I want to go to all 30 baseball stadiums. Incredible. My favorite stadium by far, and the city is really cool actually.
Yeah. When I moved here in 2010, it was for grad school. I was kind of looking to get out of Boston, explore somewhere much different. I was somewhat familiar with St. Louis because my dad's brother and their family lived in Columbia, Missouri.
Okay.
And I remember visiting Columbia. I remember sometimes coming through St. Louis. I think we visited St. Louis one time when I was really young with either my uncle or my grandfather or something like that. But I knew I had some family nearby. And WashU had the best MSW program, which is I came here to get my master's in social work. They had the best program in the country, so I did that, and then that opened the doors for volunteerism and Make-A-Wish and everything.
Yeah, definitely.
So
So on the wishes where they want to meet a celebrity, have you ever been on one for like an athlete? Because I feel like if I were to do that when I was 5 or whatever, I definitely would have wanted to meet Albert Pujols, like hands down. Albert Pujols, Yadier Molina. That was
so the Make-A-Wish office has a great relationship with all of our sports teams: the Blues, the Cardinals, the Chiefs, the Rams when they were here. The office handles most of those relationships. So a volunteer like me, unless the office has a special circumstance where they might invite a volunteer to be an escort for a kid or something, usually somebody from the office handles those wishes. So a wish to meet Patrick Mahomes or Travis Kelce. We've had a few of those recently. It would usually be Brian at the office or Ashley or one of the staff there. I was invited one time to be an escort for a kiddo who wanted to meet John Cena when WrestleMania came to St. Louis. It was last year or the year before. There was a mix-up at the end. The meet didn't exactly happen there, but John Cena did come, but we didn't do the Make-A-Wish meet. So I got to go to WrestleMania. I got to see the Wish kids that were there, and we got to see John Cena perform. That was the only athletic one that I've been a part of, if you could call that athleticism.
yeah. No, I mean, honestly, to do WWE, you kind of got to be an athlete to some extent, doing all those flips and
Yeah,
getting hit by chairs and all
Yeah.
that stuff.
yeah, exactly.
That's cool, man. So you've gotten a lot of different experiences just by being a volunteer
Yeah.
at Make-A-Wish.
Yeah.
So you said before we started, it's kind of like your second job of being a volunteer.
Yeah.
But like when it comes down to it, like you have the background in getting your own wish, but how fulfilling is it to have that be like a second job?
It's becoming a wish granter has been the best decision I've made in my life, by far. It's been the most fulfilling thing. My job is great, but Make-A-Wish has my heart. I love meeting the kids. I love being able to be a support for the families, for the parents, especially for a new diagnosis. I just talked to a parent yesterday. I help with the welcome calls for when a wishes come in as being referred. I help the office out with that. And I actually got to meet a mom of a 15-year-old who got diagnosed with rhabdomyosarcoma just in January.
Oh, wow.
So they're fresh off it. Mom was crying. She was describing it as it's new, it's shocking, it's rough. I said, well, look, I'm a survivor. It'll be okay. You're in good hands. He's doing okay. Leave it with that. Just do it by day. Trust your doctors. He's at Children's Hospital, which is top-notch care.
Phenomenal, yeah.
And if they do anything like what they did for me, he's going to be fine. And she says, thank you. And I've gotten to do that for several other families too. And that's been great as well.
Wow.
And then obviously being able to, when the kid's wish is confirmed by the office, and being able to say, hey, you're going to Hawaii, you're going to Disney, you're going to get your computer, you're going to get your tree house or whatever the wish is, and seeing them smile, seeing them cry, seeing them, whatever it is, that hits you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the mom's reaction when you told her that you were a survivor? Did she I assume she didn't know before meeting you.
No, she didn't know. But I said, one of the questions you ask when you're doing the call is, you're confirming the diagnosis and the date that they were diagnosed. So I said, I see that he was diagnosed with rhabdo in January 25. How is he doing? And she says, we're all settling in. He's having a rough time with it, accepting it. He's angry that he has to be in the hospital, etc. I said, well, I want to tell you as a survivor, he's going to be okay. And she said, oh, really? You heard her voice kind of elevate and oh, really?
Yeah.
And then I said, yeah, 30 years ago. And she said, oh, wow. And then she kind of said, thank you. I appreciate you telling me that. Yeah. I met another kid. This was back in 2017. He was 4 years old, and he also had the rhabdo, and he had pretty much the same type that I had. I walk into the house. Mom walks us into the living room. I look at him, and I say, hold on a second. I step outside, and I call my mom. I say, Mom, I need you to send me a photo from one of our photo albums from like 87. And it's a very specific photo. And she goes and she finds it and she takes a picture of it and she sends it to me. And then once I get it, I go back inside and I walk up to the mom and I say, Mom, I want you to look at this photo and I want you to look at him. And she looks at the photo and she looks at him and she's like, oh my God. We both, in the photo was of me at that age. We both had very, very short hair, like our hair had just been growing back after having lost it. We were both wearing like a sweater and sweatpants, like blue sweatpants and like a red sweater. And we're playing with a toy dump truck. And there's light coming from like a window or like a door from the left on both of the photos. We could have been twins. And I was like, this is too surreal for me. And that was amazing.
Wow. That's that connection that you couldn't get otherwise unless you'd already been
And I
through
told
it.
her, it came up in conversation that I was a survivor. And she asked me what type of cancer I had. I said, rhabdo. She said, oh, that's what he has. I said, I know. How's he doing? Like, what's his treatment? And, from there, it was a conversation with Mom, like always. Anytime I emailed her, texted her, called her, whatever, she's like, hey, we're going through this. We're having this chemo. Is this what you had? Is this what you did? And then I have to go back and call my mom. Mom, is this what I did? So it was always a conversation restarter with my parents as well.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I mean, what a resource for them to have. In addition, obviously, you're trying to grant the kid's wish, but to also have that person.
His wish
got
ended
that.
up being very similar to mine, too, which was funny. It was another point of connection that he chose San Diego.
San Diego for the beach. Wanted to see the beach.
Beach, the La Jolla, the zoo. Yeah, those were their big things.
Wow.
So.
And so day job is social worker.
Yeah.
So how does that, do you think that like helps you also being a volunteer with Make-A-Wish, just like working with people, or is there any connection there?
My regular job, my full-time job is that I work with kids who are and families who are in foster care and adoption. There wasn't much of a direct connection. I've always worked with kids in some fashion. I've worked with kids who are medically fragile. I've worked with kids who are in residential programs. I've worked with kids at summer camps, foster care. So I do occasionally, like, for example, some of my Make-A-Wish kids have been foster kids. And so I know how the foster care system works, and I know what the steps are that need for like a foster kid to be able to have a wish. Like I know what steps they have to go through, so I could kind of navigate that using my work knowledge into my thing. There's not much other crossover though. Totally different situations,
Right.
But just again, working with kids, having the knowledge of working with kids of all ages for all my life, it's easy to do both.
Yeah. And then whenever, obviously, some of the kids, their diagnosis might be pretty bad and they might end up passing. Whenever that happens, do you guys find out about it generally, or?
Yeah. I've had about 12 kids who have passed away that I've worked with. 3 of them I was notified by somebody at the office, like, hey, Chad, we just heard from mom or dad that so-and-so passed away. And we're going to do something in their honor, usually like name a star after them, or they have some kind of a process for kids who passed away. Some of the families I learned directly, like I was talking with mom called me, mom texted me, or for social media. like the family posts on social media, such and such just passed away after a long battle, etc. And then I notify the office. It's been about I've more heard from the family directly than like the office has contacted me. But yeah, 3 of the kids were kids who had the same type of condition that I had. And so that was also a very like, wow, like, you know, we've had kids who passed away from complications from a kidney transplant or something like that, or, you know, another, but the ones that were from the same type of, or from cancer in general even, were the ones that hit me the most.
Yeah. That's tough, man. I mean, but also at the same time, it's kind of part of it. Like the organization exists partly because of people with conditions like that.
Yeah. No, there's no mystery about it. Like when you start volunteering for Make-A-Wish and you're getting into it, you know that some of these kids probably will not make it.
Yeah.
And you have to accept that. Like you have to be ready for it. You have to kind of prepare yourself for the deal of it, whether it's, you know, just doing research on knowing what the conditions are, which I've done a lot of research on for various conditions, like survival rates and like what the types of treatment could do and everything, or just therapy and, you know, like having a good support system has been great, you know, whether my parents or friends have been really supportive, so.
Yeah. Whenever that does happen, do you feel more thankful that they ended up getting their wish of what they wanted to do?
Most of them have had their wish. Some of them were in the process of getting their wish. So there were 3 kids that passed away like right before they were going to get their wish. And there was nothing that could be done. It wasn't even like the timing or the preparation. It was just their illness. Like we had a kiddo who we met with him and it was like a day by day thing.
Yeah.
And we were trying to get his wish done and figured out what the wish was going to be, finding out from the family. And right then, after we met him, he had a complication and he passed away. So in that situation, it was like, that sucks, you know. Most of them, I had a kiddo who, we call them rush wishes. When we have a kid who's coming in and we know there's not much time, then we kind of expedite the process. We expedite the finding out, the medical approval, the fulfillment. It all gets short, like the process gets tightened down. And I mean, we had a kid who had their wish and then passed away like the next day.
Oh, wow.
Or even like a week later. Those are tough, you know. And I didn't get a chance to know those kids all that well. I feel like most of my kids right now that I have, I know a lot about them. I know a lot about the family. I know their likes and I know like how they're doing in school. That some of them have jobs, some of them are playing sports or things like that, you know. Those wishes, the ones that are the short timeline, you don't really get to know them. So you don't have that. It sucks, like you feel the pain of it, but it's like you don't have as much of the sadness as the kids who like you really got to know.
Yeah. And so Make-A-Wish is mostly just private donations that fund it, right?
Individual donors, planned giving, corporate gifts, events like trivia nights, walks, golf tournaments, things like that. It's all pretty much individual donation or like planned giving or things like that.
What is the easiest way for someone to help out? Just like go to the website and make a donation, or where can they find
Everything can
events
be
like
done
that?
through our website. You go to our website, there's a thing to donate. It's wish.org/MOCAN, M-O-K-A-N from Missouri and Kansas. They have a ways to help. There's wish granting, there's office, there's event planning, there's all different types of ways to help. And then there's donate. You can donate one time, you can donate monthly, you can donate yearly, you can donate through an event, you could go to one of their golf tournaments or trivia nights or something like that and contribute that way. There's all sorts of ways.
Yeah.
There's fundraising that schools could do. They could become a Kids for Wish Kids, where a school group can do like a bake sale or something and raise money, or a swim meet or something like that.
That's cool.
Campuses, college groups, offices, anybody can get together and donate for Make-A-Wish.
Have you seen any schools do it like after one of their students was like in waiting for a wish or something like that?
I can't recall from my own experience, but I'm sure, yes.
Right.
I know that, and I know that some Wish kids have done something for their school. Like I know that a Wish kid, not from our chapter, from another chapter, got new like football uniforms for their football team. Like that was their wish to give back. I know that some kids have given back to like their hospital and like gotten like books and toys for other kids in the hospital. But I don't know about like the direct connection with like having a kid in your school and contributing or helping with Make-A-Wish.
So, and for somebody who does want to get involved, like on the volunteer side, how would you recommend they do that? What are some of the different areas you can volunteer for?
Well, I've been a Wish grantor for 10 years, as we've been discussing. I also help the office, so I help our medical outreach manager with making welcome calls for families as their referrals are coming in and as their diagnosis have been qualified to receive a Wish. We need help at our events. We have a Walk for Wishes coming up downtown this year. Usually it's been at Forest Park. We need volunteers for that, running booths, being markers for the path, like helping families get around. We need fundraising help. All of that is on the website. It's under a Ways to Help tab on the website, which is wish.org/MoCan. Ways to Help. It's right there on the thing. The most fulfilling for me, or the most fulfilling roles that I think a volunteer could do would be either wish granting or at the events where they get to meet families and kids. But if you just want to help the organization and like, you know, administrative ways, if you're more administrative focused, you could be an office volunteer.
Is there a certain kind of flexibility you need to have to be a wish grantor?
To be a wish grantor, the office only requires you to do 2 wishes in a year. And honestly, from like, I would say my average wish, in a year span, I spend about 5 hours in total on that wish, which is not a lot over the course of a year. It's like your initial meeting with the family, which may be an hour, the reveal or the celebration, which could be like an hour, and then phone calls and texts and emails in between. It's very flexible. It's very manageable.
So pretty much anybody any
can.
career, you can do it.
If you've got a weekend off here and there, make a call, meet a kid, you know. There are kids all over Missouri and any area of Missouri and Kansas we cover. And there are kids waiting in any area you can probably imagine in the States.
What's the wait list for Missouri and Kansas right now? I think it was like 600 on the sheet that I
We have
saw.
650 kids who are currently in process. I don't know if I'd necessarily call it a wait list, but those are kids who are like waiting for their wishes.
Okay.
In our pipeline right now, those are kids who we met with who are like paperwork is processing. We know what their wishes are. They're waiting for medical approval or they're waiting for their wish to happen. There's about 600. And then there's in our pipeline of like kids who've been referred and who are waiting for their welcome call to be put in the pipeline, waiting to be met with. There's probably 100 or so. So there's kids who are waiting to be led into the process. And there's probably 100 or so-ish. And that's multiplied across the country. So every chapter, all 58 chapters have a pipeline of some sort. So imagine 35,000 children that are waiting for their wishes nationwide.
Oh, wow. Takes quite a bit of volunteering to make that happen.
And we have a lot of volunteers in St. Louis. We have a good number of volunteers in Kansas City. We have a good number of volunteers in like Joplin, Carthage, Springfield, but in the more rural areas, we need a lot more. We have a lot of kids that are waiting for wishes. We have 600, 700 kids that are waiting to meet their wish granters to have their wishes. So,
well, hope you guys get all those wishes granted.
Yeah.
Is there anything you think I missed?
Just want to remind people and everything that a kiddo does not have to be like dying to get a wish. Like if they're in good health, it's become more of like, hey, you're going through this rough time. Let's give you this experience to make the journey a little easier. So it's not, you don't have to be on your deathbed. You don't have to be in the hospital languishing. You know, you can be recovering from a transplant and doing well. You can be in the very beginning of your journey. Like, let's give you this experience that you might not get to do otherwise.
Yeah.
Maybe your family can't afford it. maybe timing is rough because of work. You know, you never know, figure, when am I ever going to have time to do this? But let's give you that experience.
Thanks for listening and watching Backstory STL. We'll release new episodes every Wednesday. Check it out on the First Alert 4 app or wherever you get your podcasts. See you next time.